After 6 days of silence, Noah thought his wife Emily was simply taking space. But when a single voice message revealed the truth, he discovered betrayal more deliberate and more devastating than he'd ever imagined. And this time, he wouldn't wait by the door hoping she'd come home. He'd show her what it looked like when the one you underestimated stops chasing. Noah Quinn never thought a simple text message could unmake everything he believed about his marriage. It showed up on a Thursday afternoon when he was parked outside a hardware store. He'd been trying to reach Emily for 6 days. No replies, no returned calls. A week earlier, she'd told him she needed a break, but she hadn't said from what. He'd worried she was sick, hurt, or worse. But when the message finally arrived, it wasn't an explanation or even a greeting. Just a line that made something in his chest drop straight through him. "I don't owe you constant check-ins." He read it twice to be sure he understood. No apology. No reassurance. Just the implication that his concern was an inconvenience. He called her right away, pressing redial even as he knew she might ignore him again. When she finally picked up on the fourth ring, her voice was bright, like nothing was wrong. "Noah, I'm with the girls. Can we not do this right now?" He kept his voice steady even as his stomach knotted. "I've been trying to reach you for almost a week. I didn't ask for a play-by-play of your life, Emily. I just wanted to know you were okay." "You're being dramatic," she said, almost amused. "Everything doesn't have to be about you feeling comfortable all the time." He watched a kid outside struggle to push a shopping cart over a patch of slush. He thought of all the times he'd defended her when people said she was self-absorbed. "Because I'm your husband," he said, trying to keep his tone calm. That used to mean something. She sighed in that way he'd heard 100 times before, like he was a problem she couldn't be bothered to solve. "You're making this into a guilt trip." Again. That word, again, wasn't casual. It was deliberate, an accusation she knew would shut him down. But he wouldn't let it this time. "Emily, I'm not asking you to account for every hour. I've just been trying to talk to the woman I married. Not the stranger who only calls to say she needs space." There was a pause, and he could hear the background noise more clearly, voices, laughter, the muffled pulse of music. She was at some party miles away. Probably Tahoe, where she'd said she'd be, though he couldn't be sure anymore. "I'm interrupting something, aren't I?" he asked. "Something that doesn't involve apologizing for needing a break from you," she replied, her tone edged with something cold he couldn't name. That was it. The final proof she didn't care if he worried. Maybe she even liked it. He felt something shift inside him, not snap, just slide out of place. "Maybe this marriage is the break you're enjoying," he said quietly. The line went dead. Noah sat there, phone still in his hand, the engine running. He waited, half expecting she'd call back. She didn't. He drove home 3 hours later. The condo felt exactly as he'd left it, down to her coat on the hook by the door. He couldn't decide if it was more unsettling to see her things or to imagine her never returning for them. That night, he didn't touch his phone again. He didn't call her or her friends. He didn't start a fight. Instead, he took out an old journal he'd nearly thrown away a dozen times. On a fresh page, he wrote a single sentence. "This isn't the first time she's pulled away, but it's the last time I'll follow." He wasn't sure if he meant it yet. But even as he set down the pen, he felt the first flicker of something like relief. For 3 days, he didn't reach out. Not because he wanted to punish her, though part of him wondered if she'd see it that way, but because he finally understood that chasing her only fed her sense of power. He went to work. He came home. He ate dinners he barely tasted. The routine felt hollow but safe. He woke up at 6, shaved, made coffee. He sat in the kitchen, staring at nothing, trying to remember when her voice had stopped sounding like home. On the 4th evening, when he thought he'd finally settled into numbness, his phone rang. Jenna's name lit up the screen. He nearly let it go to voicemail. He'd always liked Jenna in a distant, polite way. She was 2 years younger than Emily, quieter, less interested in being the center of everything. They'd never been close. She had never called him without a reason. He answered cautious. "Noah," she said. No greeting. Just his name spoken carefully. "Hey," he replied. There was a long pause. He heard the sound of paper rustling. "I know you're trying to hold yourself together," she said finally, "but you need to know who she really is when you're not around." His pulse slowed instead of speeding up. He understood that something irreversible was about to happen. "I'm not saying this to hurt you," Jenna went on. "I've watched you try. For years. I kept quiet because I thought it wasn't my place. But watching you pretend nothing's happening, it's too much." He didn't respond. He wasn't sure he could. "I sent you something," she said. "A voice message. Listen when you're ready. But don't wait too long." Then she hung up. Noah sat there for a long time, staring at the notification. He didn't press play. His thumb hovered over the screen until it started to shake. He knew, before he heard it, that whatever was on that recording would end any hope he'd been nursing. He set the phone face down on the table. He got up, poured another cup of coffee he wouldn't finish, and stood by the window as the streetlights blinked on. He knew he'd listen eventually. But not yet. He wanted to hold on to the last few hours of pretending he still had something worth saving. Noah didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed, the phone within reach on the nightstand. He kept thinking he'd pick it up, press play, and get it over with. But he couldn't make his hand move. By morning, he was still awake. He sat at the kitchen table with cold coffee and watched the gray light crawl across the floor. Every time he thought he was ready, doubt crept in. Maybe Jenna was wrong. Maybe Emily's distance was just a phase. He told himself he should hear it from Emily first. But he knew he wouldn't get the truth from her. When the sun was fully up, he finally picked up the phone. He didn't open the file. He just read the timestamp again and again. It was recorded late at night when Emily was supposed to be on a girls' trip. He imagined her in a rental house somewhere, sitting too close to someone she shouldn't, and the thought made his chest feel heavy. Hours passed. He did laundry to keep busy. He lined up clean socks on the bed and tried to pretend he had any control over what was about to happen. The phone buzzed with a new message from Jenna. "You don't have to answer. But you deserve to know." Noah knew she was right. He wasn't protecting himself by avoiding the recording. He was just delaying the inevitable. He pressed play. At first, there was only background noise, laughter, the clink of glass, muted conversation. Then he heard Emily's voice, soft but clear. "You feel more like home than he ever did." 9 words. That was all it took. He didn't replay them right away. He just sat on the edge of the bed, holding a warm towel against his chest as if it could shield him from the truth. It wasn't just that she had found someone else. It was that she meant it. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't conflicted. She had already decided he wasn't enough. When he finally replayed the message, he listened to every sound, her laugh, the way she lowered her voice. It was intimate in a way she hadn't been with him for years. He understood then that he hadn't been imagining the distance. She'd been moving away from him long before she walked out the door. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. Instead, he felt something clear out inside him, like space opening where hope used to be. He set the phone down and looked around the condo. He didn't see the furniture or the photos on the walls. He only saw reminders that she had already left him in every way that mattered. By evening, Noah had made a decision. He was done trying to convince her, or himself, that there was still something worth fixing. He took out a legal pad and started listing what needed to be handled. Bank accounts. Utilities. The condo. The list grew longer as the hours passed, but he didn't feel overwhelmed. For the first time in weeks, he felt steady. He changed the locks the next morning. He didn't wait for Emily to come home. He didn't warn her. He simply drove to the hardware store, bought a new set, and installed them himself. When he finished, he stood in the doorway holding the old keys. They felt heavier than he expected. He left them in an envelope addressed to her, taped to the inside of the storage unit they'd rented during the last remodel. No note. No explanation. Just a quiet ending she could discover on her own. The condo went up for sale that afternoon. The agent didn't ask why he was selling so quickly, and he didn't volunteer the story. The market was good, she said. They'd get offers by the end of the week. When the first showing was scheduled, Noah took a chair across the street and watched from the cafe window. He wasn't sure what he was waiting for, maybe to see if she'd even noticed the locks were changed. Emily returned the next day. He recognized her car before it turned the corner. She pulled into the lot, moving with the same unhurried confidence she always carried. As she walked up the steps, he felt strangely detached, like he was observing someone else's life. She tried the key. When it didn't turn, she paused, her hand still on the knob. He saw her shoulders stiffen. She tried again, harder. Nothing. She stepped back, staring at the door as if she could will it open. She reached for her phone. He silenced his before she could call. From across the street, he watched her read the small notice taped to the glass. She stood there for several minutes, phone in her hand, but didn't dial again. He wondered if she realized in that moment that he was done. After she drove away, Noah stayed at the cafe until closing. He didn't feel triumphant. He didn't feel broken. Just tired. But tired wasn't the same as defeated. That night, Jenna called again. He picked up on the first ring. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I didn't want you to find out that way." "I'm glad I did," he told her. Neither of them spoke for a while. He could hear her breathing on the other end. "I'm not going to ask if you're okay," Jenna said finally. "Because I know you're not." He didn't argue. I just wanted you to know, she continued, that you deserve better than someone who treats you like a backup plan. He closed his eyes, pressing the phone to his ear like it was the only steady thing left in his life. Thank you, he said. He meant it. After they hung up, he felt something shift again. It wasn't relief, not exactly. But it was the start of acceptance. He stood by the window until the street was empty, phone in his hand. For the first time in a long while, he didn't feel like he needed to chase her anymore. And he didn't feel afraid of what came next. The next morning, Noah called the attorney his friend had recommended. He'd been putting it off, telling himself there was no rush. But now that he'd heard the recording and seen Emily try to walk back into their life as if nothing had changed, he understood waiting was just another way to deny what she'd already decided. The consultation was short. The lawyer asked questions Noah had never imagined he'd have to answer. When had he first suspected infidelity? Did he have evidence? Did he want to contest any property? He didn't want to fight. He didn't want revenge. He just wanted out. Before he left the office, he signed the initial papers. The attorney slid the folder across the table and said he could take a few days to think it over. Noah signed it immediately. That afternoon, he packed a small suitcase. He left most of their things behind. The furniture, the framed photos, the art Emily had insisted they buy, all of it felt like props for a life that wasn't real anymore. He didn't want reminders. By evening, the condo was almost empty of anything that mattered to him. He turned off the lights, locked the door one last time, and didn't look back. Noah rented a short-term place across town. It wasn't permanent, but that suited him. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like he owed anyone an explanation for where he was going. 2 days later, Emily called. He didn't answer. She left a message that started calm and turned sharp when he didn't respond. I don't know what you think you're proving, she said. But ignoring me isn't going to change anything. He deleted it without listening to the end. Jenna texted that night. Did she find the papers? Yes. She called. How are you holding up? Better than I thought I would. She didn't reply right away. He imagined her weighing whether to say more. Finally, she wrote, I'm proud of you for standing your ground, even if it hurts. He stared at the screen, realizing he couldn't remember the last time Emily had said she was proud of him. The following afternoon, he got a call from his realtor. They'd received a strong offer on the condo. He accepted it without hesitation. That same day, Jenna stopped by. She didn't warn him first. She knocked once and waited. When he opened the door, she was standing there with a plain white envelope. I thought you should have this, she said. Inside was a printed transcript of the voice recording, in case Emily ever tried to deny it. Thank you, he said quietly. Jenna hesitated before she turned to leave. She's going to try to spin this, she said. I've watched her do it to other people. Don't let her twist it back on you. I won't, he promised. After she left, Noah sat down and read the transcript. Seeing the words in black and white was different than hearing them. It made everything final in a way he hadn't expected. That evening, he got another call from Emily. This time, he answered. You changed the locks, she began. Her tone was calm but tight. You listed the condo. You've made this also public. Public, he repeated. I haven't said a word to anyone except Jenna. You're humiliating me, she said. He almost laughed at that, but he kept his voice level. You did that yourself. A pause. He heard her breathing hard, like she was trying to steady herself. I never meant for this to happen, she said, her voice lower. I never meant to hurt you. But you did, he replied. And you didn't care until you realized I wasn't going to keep pretending. Another long silence. Then, quieter. What happens now? He closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the answer settle in his chest. Now we finish this, he said. When he hung up, he didn't feel angry. He felt done. The next morning, he met with the lawyer again. They finalized the petition for divorce. Noah requested that Emily keep the furniture and artwork. The attorney raised an eyebrow. You sure you want to let it all go? Yes, Noah said simply. She cared more about those things than I ever did. That afternoon, he dropped off an envelope at the storage unit. Her new keys, a copy of the divorce filing, and a note. Take what you want. I'm done fighting for space in a house that was never really mine. He didn't sign it with affection, just his name. That night, Jenna called again. She didn't ask if he was okay. She didn't try to comfort him. She just said she was there if he needed someone to talk to. I appreciate it, he said. I know, she replied. They didn't say anything else. The day the sale closed, Noah drove by the condo one last time. He parked across the street and watched as the new owners carried in boxes. Emily hadn't come to collect anything in person. She'd sent movers. It was fitting. She'd spent years staying just far enough away that he could never quite reach her. When he drove away, he didn't feel regret. He felt relief. But the real moment of clarity came later, when he pulled into the parking lot of the courthouse. He sat there for a few minutes, hands on the wheel. He realized he wasn't nervous about the filing or seeing Emily again. He was just ready for it to be over. And he was finally willing to accept that sometimes, the only way to save yourself is to stop trying to rescue someone else. Noah sat in the courthouse lobby, the divorce papers in a folder on his lap. The clerk behind the glass window called names one by one. Each person ahead of him looked the same. Tired, tense, resigned. He wondered if he looked like that too. His name came over the speaker. He stood and walked to the counter. The clerk took his ID and the documents, scanning each page with practiced detachment. Are you representing yourself? She asked without looking up. Yes. Is your spouse present today? No. She nodded and slid the forms back to him. The judge will call you when they're ready. He went back to the hard plastic chair and waited. When the door finally opened, a bailiff gestured him in. The courtroom was nearly empty. Just the judge, a court reporter, and a woman at the clerk's desk. He took his seat at the petitioner's table. 2 minutes later, Emily walked in. She was composed, her steps even. She didn't glance at him. She took her place across the aisle, her lawyer at her side. The judge began without ceremony. Names, dates, the property disclosures, a summary of the filing. Emily kept her eyes forward, her expression blank. When the judge asked if there were any objections to the division of property, her lawyer leaned in and whispered something. Emily hesitated, then shook her head. No objection, Your Honor, her lawyer said. The judge nodded. Any additional evidence to be presented? Noah didn't move. He didn't need to add anything. But from the back of the room, a voice spoke up. Yes. It was Jenna. She stepped forward, a small device in her hand. Emily's head snapped up. Your Honor, Emily's lawyer began, this is highly irregular. The judge lifted a hand to cut him off. Identify yourself. My name is Jenna Wallace. I'm the respondent's sister. What is this regarding? Jenna's voice was calm. Evidence that shows the respondent's conduct during the marriage. Emily's voice was suddenly sharp. This is out of line. She doesn't have standing. She can speak if the court permits, the judge said, looking at Jenna. Proceed. Jenna walked to the clerk's desk and connected her phone to the speaker system. Emily stood. Your Honor, I object. This audio was not submitted before the hearing. You may object formally after it's heard, the judge replied. Sit down. Emily remained standing a second longer, then sank into her chair. Noah watched Jenna press play. The room filled with the muffled laughter he already knew too well. Then Emily's voice came through, clear and sure. You feel more like home than he ever did. Noah didn't look at her. He looked straight ahead, waiting for it to end. When the recording stopped, the judge let the silence stretch. Then he spoke evenly. Do you wish to amend your petition, Mr. Quinn? No, Noah said. Everything I filed stands. Emily's lawyer whispered something urgent in her ear, but she didn't answer. She was staring down at the table, motionless. Jenna walked back to the gallery and sat down. The judge reviewed the final paperwork. The dissolution is granted. The property division is accepted as proposed. Emily didn't look up. The bailiff called for the next case. It was over. Just like that. Noah collected his folder and stood. He felt a strange calm, the absence of any need to fight or explain. As he walked past Emily's table, she lifted her head just enough to meet his eyes. She didn't say anything. Neither did he. Outside the courtroom, Jenna was waiting. She held his gaze for a moment before speaking. I'm sorry it came to this. No, he said quietly. You were right. I needed to hear it. They stood there a while without talking. Finally, Jenna broke the quiet. She's going to hate me for a long time. She might, Noah said. But she did this to herself. Jenna looked like she wanted to argue, then stopped. Instead, she nodded. I'm going to head out, she said. He watched her walk away, feeling a gratitude he couldn't fully express. When he turned, he saw Emily coming down the hallway. She stopped a few feet away, arms folded, her face tight with something he couldn't read. I didn't think you'd actually go through with all of this, she said finally. He didn't answer. I thought you'd wait for me to come home, she continued. I thought you'd forgive me eventually. He kept his voice level. You thought wrong. Her shoulders tensed. You don't have to hate me. I don't, he said. I just don't care anymore. For a second, he thought she might cry. But she didn't. She swallowed hard, her eyes fixed on the floor. Was any of it real? She asked, her voice low. It was real for me, he said. But I can't speak for you. She didn't reply. She turned and walked down the corridor, her steps slow. He waited until she was gone before he moved. Outside, the sun was bright. He stood on the courthouse steps for a minute, breathing air that felt cleaner than anything he'd tasted in weeks. There was no triumph in him. Just the certainty that he'd done the only thing he could. When he got back to his car, his phone buzzed. A message from Jenna. You okay? Yes, he typed. I think I am. He put the phone away and drove off without looking back. Noah spent the first few days after the court hearing trying to understand what it meant to be alone again. He didn't feel relieved the way he expected. The reality of freedom was quieter and heavier than he'd imagined. But it was also honest. For the first time in years, there was no pretending. Emily didn't call after the judgment. She didn't send any messages. The absence felt deliberate, like she understood there was nothing left to say. He was grateful for the silence. Jenna texted him on a Wednesday evening. I'm bringing you something. Don't argue. He didn't. She showed up half an hour later with a grocery bag. She didn't look nervous or apologetic. She just handed it to him and stepped inside. You need to eat something that isn't takeout, she said. He almost laughed. He realized then he hadn't smiled in a long time. They sat at his small table and ate in an unhurried way. She didn't bring up Emily or the recording. She didn't ask if he was okay. Instead, she told him about work and her plans to visit her parents. The normalcy felt strange but comforting. When they were done, she stood to leave. She paused near the door, studying him. You look tired, she said softly. I am, he admitted. You don't have to act like you're fine with all of this. I know. She hesitated, then reached out and rested her hand briefly on his shoulder. It wasn't a gesture that asked for anything. Just an acknowledgement that he wasn't as alone as he felt. After she left, he washed the dishes and stood by the window. For the first time, he realized he didn't feel bitterness toward Emily anymore. What he felt was something closer to regret, not for losing her but for the years he'd spent trying to keep something alive that had been dying for a long time. The next morning, he drove to the condo one last time. The new owners had already moved in. Their cars were in the driveway. He didn't get out of the car. He just looked at the building that had once been his whole world and felt nothing. He drove away without stopping. A week later, he got a call from an unknown number. When he answered, Emily's voice came through, quiet and strained. I'm not calling to fight, she began. Okay, he said. I wanted to tell you I moved into a place downtown. I thought you want to know where I was. You don't have to report to me, he replied. I know. I didn't want you to hear it from someone else. He waited, giving her space to say what she called to say. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said. But I want you to believe that I'm sorry. Not just for what I did, but for how I treated you. He closed his eyes, feeling the truth of it settle in. I believe you, he said quietly. There was a pause. He wondered if she'd start crying, but she didn't. I hope you find someone who makes you feel appreciated, she said finally. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for, he told her. They ended the call without goodbye. Afterward, Noah sat with the phone in his hand. He wasn't angry. He wasn't even sad. He felt like he'd finished something. Jenna came by again later that evening. She didn't ask if he'd spoken to Emily. Instead, she helped him unpack a few boxes he hadn't bothered to open. They didn't talk much, but it didn't feel uncomfortable. When she was about to leave, she stood by the door, studying him. You seem different, she said. I feel different. Good different. Better, he said. Just better. She smiled, then stepped closer and kissed him. It wasn't rushed or uncertain. But it wasn't a declaration either. Just a moment of clarity between them, something honest without expectation. When she pulled back, she didn't apologize or explain. He didn't either. She left without saying more. After she was gone, Noah sat down, feeling the quiet settle over him again. But this time, it didn't feel heavy. He understood that he wasn't moving on to prove something. He wasn't trying to replace what he'd lost. He was simply starting over. Weeks passed. He didn't hear from Emily again. He didn't wonder where she was or who she was with. When he thought of her, it was like remembering another life. One evening, Jenna sent him a message. Do you want to come over for dinner? No pressure. He read it twice before replying. Yes. I'd like that. That was all. He locked the door behind him as he left, feeling a calm he hadn't known he was capable of. Outside, the sky was turning dark. He didn't feel dread at what was ahead. He didn't feel regret for what was behind. He felt something simple and undeniable: freedom. Noah understood he didn't need to have everything figured out. He just needed to keep going, one honest step at a time. And for now, that was enough.